Hello, hello. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the live stream today. So thank you guys for joining. If you're in the chat room, please let yourself be known. Say hi. Tell me where you're from. That'd be awesome. So today I thought it'd be fun to continue on with this app that I'm creating. So I'm building a link tree type of clone application that you can add links to, and then you can share the URL with anyone. And then I'm looking at some other features, so we'll look at that as well, which is great. And then also be answering any questions. So if anybody has any questions, just say hi. Hello. Let me know you guys can hear me. That'd be awesome. And yeah, we'll go from there. Yep. So let me see here. Let me take a look here. Hey, greetings from Netherlands. Welcome. And we'll just let people, as you guys come in, feel free to say hi, ask any questions. What's up, Mike? How's it going? Let's see here. This is the kind of the requirements and what I've been thinking about for this project. Let's see if I can get my face to show up. Hey, here I am. So yeah, we can talk more about this app I'm creating and do a little live coding, but I'll answer questions here. All right, so I have a question here. I want to create a social feed using Firebase. The bad thing of using this service is that we have a query limit of 10 collections using the in operator. Any ideas how to make this work? So I cannot speak to Firebase. I actually work at AWS, and so equivalent to Firebase, if you guys would like to use something similar, is something we have on here. If you go to we have a bunch of websites. So if you go to docs.amplify.aws, there we have something called data store. We also have a lot of different types of services that have similar features to some of the Firebase features that you may have seen. So we have Amplify libraries for JavaScript, Flutter, iOS, Android. We have a whole Amplify Studio, which is this more visual representation of your backend where you can kind of just quickly add things. We have like a content management system. We have data where you can create your own tables, and it's managed by our AppSync GraphQL service in the backend. And then what I think you're asking, if we would kind of the equivalent on the Amplify side, is if we look over at our libraries, there's something called data store, and I was actually using this inside my app. And so this data store is kind of like a offline and online solution for leveraging shared and distributed data without writing additional code, which makes working with distributed cross-user data. So it has some really nice features that you can connect to your backend, in this case, our backend AppSync managed GraphQL service, and have the data just appear for you. And if you're doing things like limits and queries, that is built into data store. So if we look directly into like manipulating data, there's actually, you can even subscribe to data too in data store, but there's a whole bunch of limits. So you can do a data store.query on the data. You can put any sort of limits that you want. It also has kind of conflict resolution where you can choose a conflict resolution strategy where this has this optimistic concurrency. So that way it feels like it's really in real time. And if any data on your server changes what you have locally, it'll have the strategy where it can either merge it together, or it kind of behaves like it's in real time. So it's a really quick way to deal with your data. There was a Firebase video on how with Next.js 13, you can actually use a new hook, which adds, I believe, some type of optimistic concurrency if you're dealing with server-side rendering with the new use server. So if you're familiar with that, this is how you do it in Data Store. So I can go on with Data Store for a while. We're going to look at it in a little bit. What's up, Boomer? Love Phoenix, Arizona. It's great. Hey, Nicholas. Hey, Joao. I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. Does it make sense to create an API using Nuxt 3 with a layered architecture, domain, application, infrastructure, and API? That's a good question. So if you're building a Nuxt 3 app, you're going to have to, I guess it just depends on what you're trying to do and what kind of data and what you're doing in the back end. This is interesting. When I first saw this pattern with Nuxt and Next, where we had server-side routing, server-side routes in it, I was thinking, do we really want to do what kind of manipulation do we want to do in these server-side routes versus using a dedicated backend like with a Lambda or your own Node.js server or Nest? And at the beginning, I was always under the impression that you're using these server-side routes for kind of more simple back-end things. Maybe you need to connect to a database and send information out, or you need to do some sort of manipulation or things that you obviously can't do on client side because it's not protected. So what I found since then is that there's so many ways you can create your whole application with something like Nuxt, and you can do everything inside your API, inside Nuxt 3's API routes. And so I would start there. If I was creating a new app today, in fact, I am, I'll be working on it a little bit later this live stream, I would for sure see how much of that API that I can just put inside Nuxt. In my case, I'm using Next myself, and then not worry as much about creating a dedicated backend. Now with AWS, you can easily, in Amplify, you can easily add in Lambda functions. We added in a post Lambda confirmation trigger on this last stream. So it's easy added in later if you find that what you're getting out of the server-side API routes isn't enough. Now, as for the domain infrastructure API, yeah, it definitely makes sense to kind of layer those things in. So, obviously you need to find where you're going to be hosting, and you want to grab your domain services. You want to, for your infrastructure, how you want to kind of put that together. So I think that's your question. I would definitely layer those pieces on as I'm creating a new project. Like my personal project I'm working on in this stream, I haven't bought a domain name yet. That's something I'm going to layer on later. I don't have hosting. I'm pretty sure I'm going to use Amplify hosting because it has Amplify hosting supports Next 13, and it supports server-side routes and server-side rendering. So it makes a lot of sense going that way. But I mean, if I'm not, there's obviously lots of others, Netlify, Vercel, things like that. So I'll layer that all in. Let me know if that answers your question, Joe. Hello from South Africa, longtime fan of the channel. Hey, thanks, Sia, for checking out this live stream. Yeah, feel free to ask any questions as we're kind of looking through and playing around here. Yeah, thanks for joining it, Q the Coder. Appreciate it. Where was I? Yes. Yeah, I was talking a little about conflict resolution. So I want to say Next 13 has a new type of conflict resolution with its new app router. App router? Maybe it's concurrency. I could have sworn I saw that. I can't find the documentations with the app router and concurrency. It's if anybody knows in chat, let me know. I thought that it's like an experimental hook app. I can't find it. I'm almost certain it has something that handles the conflict resolution, meaning that when you have data on your server and then you have data locally, how do you make sure that they're in sync together, especially when you're using things that like in data store, which get updated locally and then can be saved offline and things like that. All right. So here is my Linktree clone. This is so before the stream, I thought maybe I'd write some of these things down to talk about like what we're trying to do. And as always, feel free to interrupt, questions, comments in the chat. I'm always looking for that. So here, so really the idea is we want to, with this link tree, we want to be able to show a URL that's public, like /Erik. We want to add links, be able to add links, delete links. We want to be log in, log out. We want a sign in page, obviously. Now stretch, something I can do later on, is I noticed like a lot of Linktree type of clones out there. So if we look at Linktree example, we just Google it real quickly. You can see here with this Linktree, you have this how to islands hop around with white sands, whatever this is. In the dashboard for most of these services, you can find out how many times people have clicked on each one of these links. So that would be really nice to have. It's like some sort of analytics that say if you added a link tree like this, how many times each person clicked on it. So that's definitely something that would be interesting. And then if you notice too, like in this example, it says how to island hop around the white sands, complete guide to caravan. A lot of times people, when they add a URL in to these services to add into this like link card, I guess my head's in the way a little bit. When they add in services like this, they're not necessarily typing this in, but you can edit it. What they're doing is they're grabbing like the same thing, the metadata for a card when you add on Twitter or Facebook. So those kind of sharing, those meta sharing, that's exactly what's grabbing first. So the meta sharing information, HTML. So like the meta tags for social media. So you can, to make these cards, you can use this type of information so if someone adds a URL, you can grab this data in here and then display it. And so that's a part of what I want to try to do too, is how can if someone enters your URL in, how can I grab the right data from the correct meta tags to display in there so they don't have to type it all in themselves. That's another kind of requirement. And then any good app probably has some testing, and I have some ideas how we can add in a few testing libraries. I'm thinking, and let me know what you guys think. So if we go testing library, definitely using Jest with testing library, I think will be the strategy. We'll do unit tests, and then if we have time, maybe add in like Cypress end-to-end tests or Playwright. I've been definitely wanting to try out Playwright. I think that would be kind of a fun library to add, but that will be later on when we have actually something to test. Are you late, Fiji? No, you are right on time. I just started, I don't know, 20 minutes ago, 10, 15 minutes ago. And I'm just answering questions and just talking about building an app. Like how would you build like a production type app like this? And so here are my requirements. And then here's the tech stack that I'm working on. This is funny. If you guys, I don't know if anybody saw this, but Kent C. Dodds had his Epic stack lately. The Epic stack, which I'm like, this is a really interesting stack. Like there's a bunch of people coming up with different stacks, like the T3 stack. I don't know if anybody's seen this stack lately from our friend Theo. And so his stack, this Epic stack includes Remix, uses like Docker and Fly app deployment, SQLite, Grafana, GitHub Actions. I definitely agree on some of these. Like, what do you guys do for your stacks? I want to hear. Let me know in the comments what sort of stacks that you guys have. Let's see here. Let me move this back over. Yeah, so this is kind of interesting stack. GitHub Actions, Mailgun, they use Prisma. Like I would definitely use GitHub Actions. I've used it we actually use it at AWS all the time for a lot of our open source projects. I'm a big fan of Tailwind. I use Radix, but I'm kind of partial because we use Amplify UI component library, so that's probably what I would use, but it's okay to use that with Tailwind or something. Playwright, I like Cypress still. I know Playwright's good. I want to try out Playwright, so that's another idea. I like VTest, but if I'm using Next, obviously I can't use VTest. And then Prettier, ESLint, TypeScript. I agree all three of these. I haven't used Zod yet. I don't know if you guys are Zod fans. Let me know. I've never even used it. And then Stripe. And so this is kind of an interesting stack. And then the T3 stack, I haven't tried this out, but I've had my friend, I think my friend Red Dev Simplify just did a stack on this. But it has, what is in this stack? Yeah, it has TRPC, TypeScript, Prisma, NextAuth, Next.js. Interesting stack. I'm not sold on TRPC, but it's partially because I haven't really used too much of it. Hey, GitHub. Yeah, should we use GitHub Action Tuts? Yeah, Osmel. GitHub Actions is super powerful. I've gone down the rabbit hole of adding in like GitHub Actions to my apps, and I think it's excellent. It does take a little bit of time to get used to and to test. If you want to see like a really good library that uses GitHub Actions really well, if you go to the Amplify UI library, I worked on this team. If you go to their GitHub Actions, you can see kind of a very advanced action set of all the things they're doing. Where are they? So they have a whole bunch of YAML files in here for different types of things that they're doing. If you go to, I think they've reorganized this. Yeah, they have a bunch of workflows. So like in this type, this repository is an open source repository for the Amplify UI project, but it's doing all sorts of things. Like every time we merge to main, it uses npm, and it publishes a new library that's on the next branch. I think it's next branch. They also have this to use to run all the tests. So anytime we push a pull request, all the end-to-end tests run. And so you can see how that's done through all these different Cypress test runners. And if you even look here, if you go to, I mentioned this in a previous stream, but I think it's worth mentioning again. If you go to actions, you could see all the different sort of GitHub actions that are running. There's even every 15 minutes, there's a canary that runs that just tests every single type of combination that we can with Vue, Webpack, different React, Vue, Angular, to make sure like we haven't broken anything with any of our UI packages. So yeah, check that out. I'm a big fan of GitHub Actions. I did hear last week they had some downtime and it wasn't 100% reliable. So keep that in mind. Wes Boss was just talking, I think Wes Boss just tweeted about like how he's handling like long server. Here, we can look. Twitter. Here's my tweet thread. If you look at Wes Boss recently, yeah, he just had a question on something similar to this. So if you go to, what's your approach to log running background tasks in serverless environment? So this is kind of an interesting question in itself. I don't want to go down this tangent, but serverless, usually there's a spin up time that it takes, that anytime you have a request go out to a serverless function, it might need some time to warm up. And then it's not really known all the time for long running background tasks. So it's an interesting question in itself. And a lot of people were talking about like not a pure serverless solution, but spinning up a job. Every job server works really well in Rails. So that's like sort of serverless, but you're spinning it up. People were talking about, someone even mentioned like to use GitHub Actions. Let's see here. I'm pretty sure like someone's like, well, what about using GitHub Actions to do what you're asking? I have to find the tweet, but it was interesting, like a way of thinking about this. And there's definitely lots of stuff to handle this problem in AWS, like step functions. Someone mentioned Dax knows this really well, with lets you kick out like use sst.job. There's Event Bridge There's different queuing technologies. There's different ways to fix this up. But somebody's like, maybe you can use like a GitHub action to like start a serverless. I don't know. Maybe you could do something crazy like that. And some people are just like, don't even use serverless for this. Just use a server, a serverful method. And interesting little side tangent I just thought of while we're looking at this. Is Zod awesome? I have not tried Zod. People keep telling me to try it. And I saw Kenzie Dodds mentioning it a lot. Obviously, it's in that T3 stack. I think they use Zod in here. Maybe they just use TypeScript. Did they use Zod? Yeah. They use Zod, a schema validation library built on top of TypeScript. I want to try this out just to see how it would work in my stack, but I don't know. Very interesting. So what's Zod? Yeah, let's go back. So if we go back to Zod library, they're calling it it's a TypeScript first schema validation with static type inference. So in other words, Zod is a TypeScript first schema declaration validation library. I'm using the term schema to broadly refer to any data type from a simple string to a complex nested object. It's designed to be developer friendly as possible. The goal is to eliminate duplicate type declarations. With Zod, you declare a validator once. And I think they have some examples here. Yeah, here's some basic usage. So you can create a schema for strings. And then you can do parsing, tuna, 12, save parsing. And then you can do they have a whole bunch of primitives. So I guess you would, I'm not sure how you do this like in practice, but here's a bunch of examples of like making sure that you may have a Zod type and making sure that that type is validated correctly. I guess you put these validators on your different types, and that way it's a better, clear typing system, and you can have more complicated schemas for it. So that's quite interesting. I want to try this out to see how this works like in production. Maybe I can do that on a live stream one day. I don't know. Yeah, so a little bit to talk about Tailwind. So I did a video earlier on Uno CSS. I don't know if you guys have seen this. It just reminds me, I have completely switched over to Uno CSS, at least on my last couple of projects, rather than installing Tailwind. Because first, it was just like real quick to add Uno CSS in, but it has everything I need to get started. It has all the, I guess most, if not all, the Tailwind utility classes that I'm used to, but it's just a little bit more flexible because it also, if I use the Uno default preset, it basically comes with the Windy preset, which has a bunch of ways you can do utility classes. Its usage, it basically adds Bootstrap and Tachyon are all valid. And I really like this syntax with Windy CSS where you can do MT dash and I can just put in like 25 pixels or 32 pixels. And that way I don't have to be like, well, MT dash 12, that's like 14 pixels, but I really want 15 pixels. So I do MT, 13 and it's like 16. It's like not quite right. So I'd really like this when I'm just really quickly putting together an app. In fact, I just did this for this project. So I don't know why people weren't as excited as I was, but this is a Nuxt app. I just did a video on it, and it basically uses Blue Sky, which is a sort of like a Twitter kind of a Twitter clone alternative, has an open source protocol behind it called the AT protocol. Oh, the Vue semantic server. I'll have to fix that. There is a new Volar, which I need to grab. But you can see here, as I was doing this, I just used Uno CSS and put in all the CSS classes that I like. And it was just super simple. And if you Google for like Tailwind card, Tailwind special select input, I mean, people have just open sourced and created tons of Tailwind components out there that you can get for free by just kind of Googling around and searching. And I was doing that the other day. Let's see here. Let me move this over. Of course, you can buy more Tailwind, more the paid Tailwind component library, but I haven't done that. No, before we jump into the link tree, I'll just show you this. So I was just playing around with this. I think this is in YouTube. This is my web Blue Sky client. Oh yeah, npm run dev. So this app I just created, which is now running on 3001. So the way this works is it's using the AT protocol to grab a list of tweets that you can grab. And obviously, I don't know, this is just a bunch of people. I don't even think I follow all these people. I think there's like retweets from other people. Here's Dan Abramoff. So here's my Blue Sky tweet I just did a little earlier. But what I did is I implemented it with the OpenAI API. So I'm like, okay, if I'm a web developer and I want to generate a response, can I just like create a response? So I just click here and it creates it. My favorite thing about being a web developer is not having to see my coworkers in person. And then I can click send skeet. So, or if I don't like that, I can just generate another one. And I thought, oh, being a web developer is like cooking without tasting. Everything looks good on the front end, but you never know until you deploy. So I thought this is a clever project. And I used, speaking of someone was asking about API routes. So in Nuxt, you can add this server, and then I can add this API. So I just added in a couple utils. So for auth, skeet, and TS to do that. And then I believe if I go to recommendation, this is all the text. So this is just using the OpenAPI create completion API. I think I put like $50 into the API and I've only used probably $5. No, not even $5. I think I've used like 30 cents for just playing around with this so far. My prompt isn't very good. So part of when you're using OpenAI is you got to really think of how you're going to put the prompt. And there's a bunch of now services I think that help with this. But my prompting was not as great as I wanted to. But I basically said, you're a something developer, and this gets passed in from the back end. So there's this read body that I can just use it to grab data out of the body. So this is doing a post. In fact, the Nuxt way of doing posts to the back end is you just add post to the name of the file. So this is a post endpoint in Nuxt. I use this read body, which is a built-in function that will allow me to extract out or destructure out text. I'm just using TypeScript, and then I use the create completion. It says, you are a text developer, write a funny tweet for your Twitter account, write in a natural way, not hashtags, not that hashtag. And then this max tokens is like how many words almost, at least this is sort of like how long the response should be. And then I put a temperature in there because I found out if I put 0, it just repeat the same thing over and over again. And higher this number is, like more random the answer will be. So I was able to get a little bit more random answers by putting 1 here. And that was it. And then in the index view file, I have this recommendation here. So I just do a fetch to this API recommendation endpoint. It gets back the recommendation. And I think my TypeScript, I wonder if I can restart TypeScript. I'll reload the window. But then I actually get type safety too. So I would get this recommendation if my TypeScript didn't crash on me. I'll probably have to do a little cleanup of my VS Code. I can get type completion on here. And then I just do this, I assign it the value because I have a ref here. And then I just assign it, and then I just do a bunch of regex to clean up the response. I think there's probably an easier way to do this, but I just threw your regex is fine. And that's it. And then it just, I have a V model in the skeet text. So then I can pass it down into the new post. And this new post, by the way, this is using Vue 3, the older version of Vue 3, which I know things have changed a little bit with the new define model, which I didn't use, which I think I probably should. I was going to do a video this week on all the new Vue 3.3 features, or at least an overview of them. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I like this app. And then, anyways, I have a V model in here, the skeet text, I have this model value string. Then I have a update model value. And so this model value right here gets put into the text area. And that's how it kind of puts it back in here. And then I have all these CSS classes, utility classes from Uno CSS, which essentially are Tailwind classes. Anyways, I thought this was a fun project. It's something I could see myself doing more of, because this OpenAT protocol is, I think it's pretty nice to use. I'm still not completely sold on Blue Sky yet. I think, like I just was thinking about this other day, Blue Sky is missing a whole bunch of features compared to Twitter. I know it's really early days in Blue Sky. It's private. Like I really like a way to do scheduling. I guess I could build my own scheduler if I wanted to into this app. It's also missing, like, if you go to Twitter, I mean, I have, like, even at the top here, let's go back to home. Like, I have a For You page and following, but in Blue Sky, you don't really have that at all. And then you do have like hot topics, which is not quite the same as For You page. I felt it's not as great. And then it's missing like all the audio stuff. It's missing. It doesn't have direct messages yet. It doesn't have lists, doesn't have bookmarks, doesn't have multi-factor authentication. So Blue Sky is definitely really early on, but it has, for sure, it has that kind of small feel, not small feel, but like that, the early days of Twitter, if you were on it. Like I got on Twitter in 2008. I go to my profile here. Yeah, joined May 2008. And this was like, I was watching Dignation. So if you know, Kevin Rose used to be huge. He had a podcast called Dignation. I think he's into Web3 right now. And he owned dig.com. And he used to talk about Twitter all the time. So I joined it. And then I think I spent, like, maybe I tweeted twice in the first like 3 or 4 years of using it. But when I started using it after a few years, it definitely had that small tech feel to it. There's all like a handful of celebrities, maybe a few celebrities, but mostly like tech people. And that's how Blue Sky feels right now. But it's still really early on. That's a little bit of what I think about it. So King Bob asks, I'm learning to learn Vue JS. Any course or teacher recommendation? To be fair, yeah, Twitter has had a long time to marinate. Yeah, so Vue JS recommendations. So first, I always recommend the official guide. So the official documentation for Vue JS is excellent. I know of the core contributors, and they do a great job at it. Now this, and even you can go back to vuejs.org if you want to look at Vue 2. I think nowadays most people should be using Vue 3. That's my personal opinion. But I would definitely start at the Vue JS official documentation. I would go through the quick start, and then I would go through the essentials, just reading through all of that. It'd probably just take you like a couple hours. Make sure you create an app. If you look at some older tutorials, they're going to have you use Vue CLI. Don't use Vue CLI. Make sure you're using like the Vue create app. In fact, if you do the quick start, it tells you can use npm and Vue at latest, which uses create Vue, which is kind of the preferred way to do it. So there's a lot of older bad information online, so make sure you don't follow that. I would also say you can use Vite too. So you can do npm and net Vite at latest as well, and then it gives you the option to not just do Vue, but you can do React or Preact and a few others. So either one of those. So use Vite or use create Vue with npm and net Vue at latest. That's how I would start. And then if you really want to play around without a CLI tool, you can just throw this onto Vue from a CDN onto a page. And if I was doing this and I wanted to learn Vue or just get more information for Vue at the beginning, I'd almost just use the single file, the SFC playground. So I've talked about this a lot. So if you go to play.vuejs.org, it has this whole really good playground that you can just use right now to do things with. So I would definitely do that. And you can also, what's nice about it too, is you can go through the version. So if you have a specific version you want to test, you can go back through it. It even has alpha. It used to have the alpha versions. I guess it would have it if it's on there. You can even put in dev mode and then just play around with it. You can add new files. You import those new files in. It supports TypeScript and all that. That's how I would do it. And then for courses, I had some courses on Vue. I just recently took them down because I'm revamping them. But if you follow me, I have a link. I believe a link in the description. You can join my newsletter. I'll let you know the latest courses when they're out. But I really like the stuff from Vue School and Vue Mastery. So if you just want kind of a quick overview, like a service, like Vue School has some really great courses. They have 965, 82 hours, 50 courses here. Vue Mastery has some great stuff. These are paid options. And then if you're going, I don't recommend Udemy. I don't really love Udemy, but there are a couple of Udemy courses people tell me about. One by Max. Help me out. Maximilian has done really amazing courses, especially in Angular. I like his Angular courses better, but I believe he has a Vue course too, and he updated it to Vue 3. But those are the places where I would go to learn Vue, and definitely keep in touch with me. I do a ton of Vue content on my YouTube channel. I have a whole Vue playlist too. So if you go to your channel, my channel here, and go to playlists, I have a ton of different playlists. I have one on Vuetify. I have on Vue 2. I have on Vue 3. I'm pretty sure. Here, like render functions in Vue 3. So yeah, just watch my YouTube channel. Join my mailing list. You'll get a ton of information there as well. Yep. Maximilian. He's great. Let me see here. We got another question. Let me check the time. Okay, I got a little more time. I can stay on. I might have to leave a little early, but I got a little more time. Okay, Turing asks, you've been a dev for 2.5 years. Recently took a break of 6 months because of wrongful termination and burnout. I'm trying to get back into the industry. I'm sorry to hear that. Yes, it happens. Burnout it happens to the best of us. It happens to all of us. How would you recommend to restart apart from just applying for jobs? I fear recruiters feel I'm okay. Disconnected to industry. Okay, how would you restart? Well, first, 6 months is not a long time in the grand scheme of things. I would say most employers who see gaps in your employment would probably question something that's like 2 or 3 years, or 1 or 2 years. And even then you can easily tell them like, hey, I took a break, I went traveling, I hung out with family, I had some family. I mean, there's a lot of things you can tell people that most employers would not care about. So I don't think 6 months is any sort of hindrance for you getting a job. Now, a bigger hindrance to get a job at this point in time, unfortunately, is that we have seen a lot of tech companies do layoffs recently. We've seen a lot of the industry kind of flatlining, if not falling down. Stocks took a dive last year. Some of them have been recovering, but they're not at the point they were at their highs, over a year ago. And so companies are very cautious at hiring people. From what I've seen, senior developers who have been affected is taking 2 or 3 months to get a job. And then junior developers or developers who don't have as many years of experience, I would say 2.5 years. I know some developers who have 2.5 years of experience who are considered senior. And then I know some developers with 2.5 years of experience who are considered junior developers. I guess it depends on what you did in those 2.5 years, but it's been much more difficult in this kind of climate, unfortunately. And in that case, you're going to have to rely kind of back on some tried and true methods of getting a job in this kind of economy. And that's putting out lots of different resumes, kind of going to I think a good way to put it is a combination of the spray and pray method, people call it, where you just send out hundreds and hundreds of resumes and hope that someone gets back to you. But I like to combine the spray and pray with actually having like a minimal amount of quality for every single job application you put out. In other words, if there's a way that you can put out a job application and still cater it towards what the job application is looking for. So take your resume. If you're looking for someone that has Node, emphasize that you have Node on your resume. Emphasize the pieces that they're looking for on your resume when you apply for these places. That would be good. If you have time to also write a cover letter and spend some time to customize that cover letter for every job that you are applying for, I think that also helps. So not just doing a generic resume to every single place you're applying for, but putting effort into it. So you could still get quite a few resumes out. You can apply for quite a few jobs every day if that is what you're doing full time, which I would highly recommend. Your full-time job should be getting a job. And then also the secondary part of that would be networking, going to meetups. Hopefully you're in an area that they have meetups. I know some places are still just coming back from COVID from 2 years ago. So hopefully you go to meetups, connect with your personal network, tell everybody you know you're looking for a job. But yeah, hang in there. It's going to be tough, but you can do it. Let's see what else we got here. Yeah, Vue 3 Pinia, man. Those are all, I've said it almost every live stream. I love that combination. Single file components with TypeScript. And Vue 3.3, if you didn't see the blog post that Evan Yu created, I mean, it's awesome. Like they really did a great job. Not Vue. The viewpoint. Where is it? I know there is a blog.vuejs.org. Yeah, announcing Vue 3.3. So a lot of the things that Vue was missing in TypeScript support now is in Vue 3.3. I guess I won't go into this. I'm going to create a video on it probably this weekend or Monday, for Tuesday or Monday. But I'm really excited all the cool stuff that's been coming out on it. Yeah, I agree with you, Boomer. Yep. Do you know a good tool like React Native for Vue? How about NativeScript? Yeah, this is a common issue I hear too with Vue compared to React, because we all know that React Native is amazing and people love it, and going from React to React Native is great. And I would say the only thing more popular than React Native right now, I think I like Flutter too. I think Flutter is great. But for web developers, yeah, that React definitely has a React Native. Now, two places where I look for if you're a Vue developer and you want to get into iOS or native or web development, native development like that, is to look at, you mentioned one of them, there's NativeScript. Now, I have heard mixed things about NativeScript, but I heard people that love it. So definitely using something like NativeScript. It supports Vue, so Vue's got you if you want to use NativeScript. Another, which I have heard many good things about, is, and I want to say it's Quasar's Vue offering. So if you go to Quasar for Vue, I always have to put Vue in. It has ways that you can create mobile apps with it. Man, this is huge. Getting started. So if you go to Quick Start, let's see, they changed their website. This looks a little different than I remember last. Let's refresh it. tools. And I believe it in the background of Quasar, they're using, where's the normal? I guess they changed everything. I don't like this look and feel this, honestly. But if you look through here and look at the mobile support here, I believe it doesn't use native script. It uses something else, and I can't remember what. But you can basically, using Quasar, you can create mobile apps with it. And so yeah, it uses Electron or Cordova. So it uses Cordova in the background. But I've heard good things about this too, is if you're a Vue developer and you want to create like native mobile apps, you can use something like Quasar. So those are the two that I've heard of. I think there's a few more that I don't use nor recommend. Yes. Cool. And I would say too, you could use something like Web Component. I don't think I'd use that for mobile development. Honestly, if I was going to create, I shouldn't say that. I should say, if I'm going to create like a mobile version, I would probably look closely at just using native iOS or Android instead of using like native script as well. I would see like, do I have the time to learn? Like I would try to do a trade-off. Like, do I have a time to learn this versus just doing it natively and using Xcode and whatever. It's worth looking into these other options though. Yeah, I'm really excited with all this Vue 3.3 stuff. It did say here that that now Vue language tools, previously known as Volar. So I wonder if that Vue language tools. I was just thinking out loud here that with Vue 3.3, I think it's still under Volar. I think Volar automatically updated to Vue language tools. Language support for Vue 3. Vue Volar extension. I'd have to take a look to make sure I have the right extensions installed. I'm pretty sure I do. I think it automatically updates for you. But keep that in mind. It's now called Vue language tools. Inside here. Yeah, so yeah, Osmel, you're right. Vapor mode is coming out. There was, Evan Yu just did a talk today, and there, if you don't know, Vue.js Live is going on in London right now. So they have two parts of Vue.js Live. They have one that's in live today in London, and I believe it's streaming too. And then they have a completely online one on Monday. So I actually recorded a video. So if you guys check this out on Vue.js Live, you'll see my video. I talk about how at AWS we created an open source Vue library. I'm pretty proud of it. So it's pretty cool. But Evan Yu did a talk today, and I believe he mentioned stuff about Vapor. It was earlier this morning. He did the keynote address for it. Okay, so there I am. But yeah, he did a keynote address today on it, and he talked more about Vapor. So I haven't watched it yet, but I am looking forward to finding out more about it. And Michael Thiessen, someone asked earlier too, if you're looking to learn more about Vue, check out Michael Thiessen's Twitter account. He does so many like Vue tips that I really enjoy. He also created the Mastering Nuxt 3 course in Vue School, which is really good as well. Yeah, so he has all these Vue tips that he goes through, and he's in London right now doing a talk. I believe he's in London. So really cool. Yeah, Jessica Sachs too. She's an Ionic. She used to be on Cypress, so that's another great resource if you're looking to learn Vue. All these people on here are great resources. Daniel Rowe, he's on the Nuxt team. Sebastian, he created Nuxt. Vue Native, yeah, I haven't heard of Vue Native. Maybe I have. I haven't used it. Maybe it's been a long time. This seems really old. June 12, 2018. I'd be a little weary about this, of using this. I don't feel like this is production ready. I'd be scared about using that. I'd definitely go with native script over that. Yeah, generic type support. So that I want to do a video on generic type support, but I'll be honest, like I haven't. Like here, if you don't know, if you've been following like the Vue news lately, so generic components allows you to do things like this, which is really cool. So you can do the script setup and then add in generic equals T, and then you can have T as like your defined props type. And then inside VS Code, when you import in this component, you'll get like type completion, type inference, everything you expect. So you can do like T extends string or number, U extends item, and then when you import it in, it'll detect if you have the wrong type as well. I just need to figure out like a good example of doing this. I looked a little bit on like the Vue Reddit. Some people in the Vue subreddit was talking about a couple of scenarios using generic components. I could probably show a very simple example in a video, but I was trying to think of like a better example of it. And I just got to think about what a good example is. Tool. It's also, you can do these imports as well, which is nice. Now you can import stuff in, type directly in, and then you can put it right in the define prop or inside this extends. Yeah, definitely neat scenarios. I think like a lot of larger Vue applications are probably, especially as TypeScript, is you put types everywhere in your app. This would be interesting scenario. Yeah, I agree. Yep. Yeah, Vue native is not, I would skip that. It's deprecated. Yeah, Ash. So generic support, like TypeScript generics. So where you kind of have this like T here, sometimes between the brackets. So if you look at TypeScript generics, you can kind of get all about like what the angle brackets is, how generics work. It's a pretty powerful concept. You know, a lot of TypeScript newbies, like myself for a long time, never used generics. And then as I got into like more complicated code bases, everybody was using generics and I was forced to learn it. But it is pretty powerful. You know, one person that did a great job, it's kind of old now. I don't know. If you look at Ben Awad, he did a generics video, which I think is like 2 or 3 years old now. But he did a great job of explaining generics. Yeah, it's 3 years old, but it's still like relevant to today. I would recommend that. He did a great job explaining like why you might want to use them. And the idea is like you can have, it's a major software engine building components not only well-defined and APIs, blah, 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 blah. Being able to create a component that can work over a variety of types rather than a single one. It's kind of the idea. This allows users to consume these components to use their own types. So you can have generics that kind of have a wide variety of types to them. And then you can even do type variables. Like oftentimes you'll just see the T, but I don't think that's a great way to do it. And then it becomes really flexible to do it. I know Wes Boss was creating a TypeScript course, I heard as well, and he's deep diving into some of these topics. That might be worth looking into as well. There's a lot of great TypeScript. Speaking of, if you're just looking for different TypeScript ways to level up your TypeScript knowledge, if you go to Matt Peacock, I see his name's not Peacock, but I always think it might Peacock TypeScript. It's Pocock. For some reason, I always get mixed up with Peacock. He has an excellent YouTube channel, probably the best on YouTube, honestly, on types. And he goes way deep into TypeScript. So like this could be a whole course that you'd buy in Udemy. But he talks about different like TS Playground. He's a big React developer. He talked about 5.1. I think he even has like a generic. I think he probably has a whole generics video if you look close enough. I don't know. Generics. Yeah, 10 tips for mastering TypeScript generics 4 months ago. The only problem with generics can solve. Like, yeah, definitely if you want to level up your TypeScript, I would go to his channel. And he's been blowing up recently too. His videos are getting like 30, 40,000 views. It's crazy. A vanilla let, not quite, but I would recommend Matt's channel for sure. I've been meaning to go through and like watch a bunch of his videos too. Okie doke. I should put that in the chat. Here, I'll put that in the chat too. I think he also, Matt has his own course too. So if you want to, you can get all his free stuff here, but then you can go buy, he has a whole course platform. Yeah, I think he has a Become a TypeScript Wizard. Yeah, he has a free course. I think he has a paid one as well. Let's see. You can just use Bard. Here, let's try Bard for a second. It's out of experimental phase. I think I had a bunch of chats in here. Let's see here. Tell me what a TypeScript generic is and why I'd use it, and show a code example that's non-trivial. Let's see how good Bard is to telling us this. Sure, TypeScript generic is a type variable that can be used to create reusable code. Generics are used to create code that can work with any type of data without having to specify the type explicitly. This makes code more flexible, easier to maintain. Here's a non-trivial example, and then it gives you pretty much a trivial example. But yeah, you see here now my function is type T, which is the arg. So now you can put this in. In this example, my function, I don't really love. I bet you ChatGPT would be better, but cool. All right. I think we're going to run out of time here. Maybe I have a little extra time to play around a little bit more. Yeah, these are great questions, though. Feel free to keep answering it. So I'll go back to my app here. So today's stream I wanted to do is fix data store app sync after sign up. So this is an interesting problem that I can show you guys that I found while playing around with app sync. Look, Notion even has AI. You can ask AI stuff. Okay, Brandon's asking, if you're building a brand new app, would you use 3.3 stable enough? Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. So I think I just closed it, but if you look at the Vue JS blog, the viewpoint, there's so many Vue puns out there. That's amazing. But yeah, they're definitely, it's production ready. They did I think they had 10 different beta releases and 10 different alpha releases and 5 or 6 beta releases. So it's been tested a lot for the last month or two. Yeah, you can look at the full changelog, but definitely ready for production. In fact, if you build a new app in Vue using Create Vue or Vite, it's just going to give you Vue 3.3. So yeah, definitely ready. I mean, one thing you could do, you can look at the Vue core. I think, yeah, it's Vue.js core. And you can kind of look at if anybody's having any problems, like looking at the issues. Component variable, error names not defined. But I haven't heard anything. I mean, obviously people are posting issues every day, but that's pretty normal for such a large open source project. That's another thing. People sometimes see this and they're like, 600 issues. What's the Vue core team's not doing anything? Why is it 600 issues? This is a little bit of a tangent, but these don't really at any way show the health or strength of an open source project by seeing how many issues. They are oftentimes, you'll have hundreds and hundreds of issues of feature requests, or people will post issues that no one else can reproduce, and then they just disappear and no one answers anything. I think a better, amongst other things, is to look at the insights and see how many pull requests are getting merged, how many people are active on there, how many releases are coming out. Are these issues are people answering them, which sometimes might take a few days? That would probably be a better idea. Yeah, it says here releases. So it says Vue 3.3.2 is already out. So they've already gone past they've already have 2 minor releases in the last, 24 hours. So I guess they did find some minor things. I don't know. We can look at the changelog. Why did they have 2 minor releases? Yeah, so there was a few bugs, I guess. A suspense issue, and then some some minor issues, but I don't see anything major that would cause me not to use it. And you're going to get it anyway as soon as you use any kind of new tool to create an app. Now, if you have an existing Vue app, yeah, it depends how far back you're going. So if you're like on 3.1 or 3.0, you may want to be a little bit more cautious to go up to 3.3. It isn't a breaking change though. So December it's not like a major breaking change from going from anything from 3 to 3.3. I always do get a little cautious whenever I upgrade my dependencies. I'm trying to make sure I don't break anything. Now, obviously, if I was going from 2 to 3, then that's a whole different ballgame, a different conversation. See here, I want to show this problem I was having. So yeah, this is my web sky, blue sky. But I have my other Linktree app here. I think it's running. Yeah. Let me see here. So we're going from the world of Vue to the world of Next here in a second. So I'm going to go look. It's 3,000. Yeah, you're hesitant to upgrade, Ash. I hear you. 2.7. So let me say. So if you're going from 2.5, 2.4 to 3 something, it's going to be painful to upgrade. If you do 2.7, use the migration guide. Start converting your components over to, like, it has some nice features in 3.3, like the composition API and some other things. Start converting some things over. I think you'll have an easier upgrade path. So there is a Vue migration guide. So I would highly recommend for anybody going Vue 2 to that Vue 3, use the Vue 3 migration guide, because they do have the end of this year, Vue 2 is ending support. I mean, you can get extended LTS support, but I mean, this time is coming. So you need to start thinking about updating. But I would go through this guide, and make sure you know what you're doing. I would even upgrade to 2.7 first and then go 2 to 7 to 3. I think it'd be an easier upgrade. I've talked to people who haven't done it. I haven't done a full 2 to 3 upgrade, just for some of my minor projects, but everyone tells me it's not easy. Let's see. Ali, how's it going? I'm a React developer. Please do a Vue beginners tutorial with a project. Yeah, I should. I definitely want to do more. I constantly in my channel, I cater to people that probably know Vue really well, but I don't do a ton of like really beginner content. One thing I want to do is show a application from scratch to build a Vue application with Amplify. And I've done a few of those. If you look on my channel, I'm sure you can find a few, but I'd like to do one that we go through an app from very beginning, like what I'm doing with this Linktree, to more advanced. But no, that's a good suggestion. Yep, Core. I will say it's not easy. Yeah, from going 2 to 3, you're going to have problems. Not impossible. And it also depends. If you have a small app, I would say less than 20 components, not a big deal. If you have an app that has 50, 100, 200 components, yeah, you're going to be in a world of, it's going to take a while. And you're going to have to get buyout from your management. Like, not everybody's going to be wanting you to do that. All right, let me sign in. So this is the app that I'm creating. And I already broke it. Set status. So this is kind of the problem. Like for my last one, let's see here. I'll show you. I might not have time to go through it all. We might do it next time. But so this does a query for users, and after this query happens, it lists the users and then it's trying to save it. So it's telling me that user wasn't found. So user objects here. Okay, so list users is here. Oh, but there's nothing in there. Items is empty. So it's probably getting mad at this because there's nothing there. And this might be because of this login might be really old. It's not set up correctly. Cannot read properties undefined status. So yeah, so status isn't there because this can be undefined. So items is there, but status isn't. I wonder, can I do something like this? I don't think this is gonna work. Speaking of TypeScript, okay, that worked. And there's nothing there. Yeah, okay. So I guess the thing is let me show you. If I create a new account here, what I'm trying to do here is every time someone logs in, I'm using this post lambda trigger, which post lambda in this link tree, or is it post? I think it's called link tree post confirmation lambda trigger. What's it called? Custom. Not a great name, but it does this thing where it adds a new table in DynamoDB with the correct information. And this is actually a link to our app sync GraphQL managed backend. So I should be able to use something like data store and show it. So, but the problem is that it doesn't quite work right. So I have this use effect that anytime a user logs in, I run this query. So there's two ways you can do this inside this Amplify app. I can use something like data store, or I can use something like this API with GraphQL. So I kind of want to use data store. I'm not opposed to using GraphQL, but it might be better using data store. So the way you do with data store, as soon as you log in, I just do a query. I think this is it. I need to fix my view. So every time I'm logging in, I'm doing a query for the user table, and then I'm checking the user.username, and then I'm setting the status of that, or it's empty. But this wasn't working when I was trying it, and it was failing. So I'll try it again. So I'm going to create an account. See, what's up, core? It's multiple spell project for the Belgian. Yeah. I would be very cautious there. Okay. I'm going to log in. I'm going to create a new login here. Let's call it 445. And now on my other screen, I'm going to grab it. So I log in. So now it says the username. Okay, so it says undefined here. It does show the username, but so it never sees it correctly. It thinks it's undefined. So it does this query, but we know if we looked inside our data store, inside our Linktree app, go to content, and this is going to be, I think it was 445. And here's all the different users. And today, if we refresh it, sometimes you have to refresh. This is Amplify Studio. This is kind of the way to look at your data and this visual representation. And now it's sometimes I have to kind of go back to user management. I created a bunch of dummy users. Let me do a fresh sometimes I have to log in and log out of here. Let me see if this data manager will update. And there it goes. Yeah, here it is. Here's the user it created it like I expected. Trial. This is 389 E5. So this is the user, but when I did the data query, it didn't come up with anything. It says it's not there. So what I found is that if this happens, if for some reason this data store query is not working, I can do a little trick here, which hopefully works. I can do const. Well, I think we need to do that. I need to grab in through AWS Amplify, which I don't have import in here. I can import in auth from AWS Amplify. Then I can do auth dot, I'll do await auth dot current authenticated user, I think it is user. And that's, I just need to run this. I don't need to do anything with the data, though I guess I could. I guess I can just equal and then console log user back. And if I do this, which I need to delete that. And if I refresh it, cannot access user before initialization. What's wrong here? My user? Let me make sure I didn't overwrite another variable. Refresh it here. Okay. So cool. Now this worked this time. Now it says trial. So this works. So let's log out and try to log back in. So I'm going to create a new account. Create account. I'm going to do IC Storm test 777. And then I'll grab the password again, or code from their screen. All right, so it got, okay, this is interesting. So it got back the correct user here, but it still shows undefined. So yeah, I thought that would work because this data store query should work right away. So maybe my hypothesis is wrong. So I thought I can use data store to grab it, but it's still, even though the user is here, this query is still failing. It's not showing anything. I bet if I refresh it, it'll work. Nope. Still says undefined. So I'm not sure why it's not quite working right. So the other way to do it is to use AppSync, the GraphQL with the API. So if I change it to there, that's kind of how I was playing around with before. So this one, I use the API GraphQL, use the list queries, it should grab it, and then I should be able to set the status on it. So I'm going to try this way. Refresh it. Link trees is not defined. Oops. And I probably don't. Yeah, that's fine. So refresh this. So this works. So this worked right here. So let me try to sign out and try it again. So maybe I should not use data store, because obviously it's having some sort of weird issue with the way I'm trying to do this. So I'm gonna do this again. I'm gonna do 888. Entering a code. Okay, so that worked. So it's something about data store. I might have data store like not configured correctly on the initial login. So, but this at least tells me that it is getting in the database. I am able to grab the user data out of it that got added with the post lambda trigger. And it is correct here. So the idea would be is that I could check to see what status they're in trial. And if they're in trial, then I can ask them for their username. But I'm almost thinking that this username here needs to be added in earlier on. So instead of having them log in and then add in their username, when they're actually signing in, I can add a username field here, and that'll be the username that we use when the user logs in for the first time. But the problem is then I'd also have to check to see if that username is already taken or not. So maybe it'd be easier to have them log in and then choose their username. And then they don't get anywhere until they choose their username. So if they go back here, let's go log in again. Like right here, we'll check if they're on trial, they'll only see this box here, and they have to enter username in before they can continue on. And then next time they log in, they won't be asked the username ever again. And we'll move this trial and we'll change it to like second step or a different step. That way they can go through the onboarding funnel without having any issues. Okay, I think I'm gonna do that next time. I'm actually out of time today. Thank you everyone for the great questions. I really appreciate everybody, and these are some really cool questions, and I appreciate everything. I got to jump off. Take care, everyone. I will be back next week though, so we'll do